So in this video, I want to show the deliverability checklist we have for our cold email campaigns at ScaleSprint. And for context, we are a B2B lead generation company. We specialize in cold email. We are a certified expert and partner with Instantly.ai, which is the biggest cold email tool in the world, or at least the biggest tool that's solely dedicated to cold email automation. We've sent millions of emails, created hundreds of campaigns for different B2B niches, whether it's like software, agencies, consulting, etc. So we have a lot of data and experience. And so this is going to be the definitive checklist for making sure that you are optimizing email deliverability and actually landing in the primary inbox of prospects. So this is something a lot of sales teams struggle with. So if you can actually master email deliverability and get a solid system in place, you're going to have a huge advantage. It's really easy to get ahead of people these days. You're just going to understand the basics and the best practices. So that's what I'm going to cover in this video. The first thing is having the correct sequencer. So this is essentially the tool that is going to be doing the automation, right? So some of the legacy tools in this field is like HubSpot, Apollo, MailChimp, Go High Level, etc. Like people send cold emails from these tools, which is not what you should be doing. You should be finding a tool that is hyper optimized for the modern environment of cold email. One of them is, of course, Instantly. They have all these settings that you need to optimize deliverability. Other ones are like Smart Leads, Email Bison, etc. So you just want to go with one of these modern tools, and you want to avoid some of those legacy tools because they're really not optimized for the modern environment of cold email. So that's the first thing. The second thing is having the correct sending settings. So I have a video going through the sending settings that we use on Instantly.ai, but essentially some of the things you want to be looking at is the sending intervals. Like, are you randomizing the sending intervals? How many warm-up emails are you sending while you're sending cold emails? Because you never want to turn off warm-up, so you want to sort of make sure that you have the right sending patterns, the right warm-up settings, and also sending the correct amount of emails per day per account. We find that the sweet spot is about 30 emails per day per account. But if you have good results and you have a high reply rate and you're successfully landing in the primary inbox, you can afford to increase it a bit, maybe go up to 50 a day. So that is sort of the range. And that briefly covers kind of the sending settings here. Again, I have a more detailed video on that called Instantly.ai guide on my YouTube channel. The next thing is proper data verification. So this is essentially verifying the email addresses on a lead list. You want to make sure they're actually valid and that they actually exist, because if they don't, you're going to get bounces from the email server, and that's going to affect your email deliverability in a negative way. You want to make sure that your data is properly verified within the last 14 days. You don't want to have it be longer than that, because there might be email addresses on that list that no longer exist. You also want to make sure that you're not sending to catch all email addresses unless you really know what you're doing, because that's just super risky to do. You want to, if you're using, so we're using email Million Verifier for our email verification, and they have an option to only download the non-risky emails. But a lot of people, unfortunately, they rely on, let's say, Apollo's verification, and then they send to a bunch of risky catch-all emails, and they just have huge deliverability issues. So you want to make sure you're doing that correctly. The next thing is inbox rotation, and this is something that we've noticed become increasingly important. So instead of like having, let's say, 50 email accounts that you're sending emails from and just using those continually, you want to set up 100 accounts so you can create 2 batches of 50 and then rotate them back and forth every 3 to 4 weeks. The reason for that is you want to have one of the batches always warming up. This is going to make sure that their lifespan, in terms of how long they actually have good deliverability, you want to make sure that lifespan is increased as much as possible. This is going to be a huge return on investments, even though it's a bit more expensive to set up more accounts, but it's really, really worth it to do and have this inbox rotation system. The next thing is warm-up. Most people that are familiar with cold email know about warm-up. Essentially, warm-up is just having a network of email accounts that are sending emails back and forth automatically to increase their mutual sending reputation. And this is something that is provided on Instantly.ai. They have the biggest warm-up pool in the world, as far as I know. So that's something you want to do for at least 2 weeks, but the more the better. So if you can do that for 3 to 4 weeks, that's perfect. If you know you're going to be launching cold email next quarter, it's actually worth it to invest in the email accounts, have them warm up for like 2 months or whatever, and then launch them, because that's just going to massively increase their lifespan and their deliverability and performance. The next thing is spin tags. This is short for syntax spinning. This is when you have certain words that are randomized in an email while maintaining the same meaning. So for example, this could be the first line being hey, hi, or hello. So essentially the sequencer you use will choose one of the words at random, and you can do the same for like the signature, like kind regards, best regards, etc., and then also for the main text of the email. So this is really important. It's gonna avoid some of those patterns of sending the exact same email, which of course no human would do. So it sort of shows that there's a level of randomization, and that kind of gives the email service providers the illusion that is actually a human sending, even though it's automated. So you want to do a spin tags or syntax spinning. The next thing is avoiding copy fatigue. Now, copy fatigue is essentially when you've been sending emails with the same sort of structure or messaging repeatedly, right? So what's important to notice here is that you can have spin tags and still have copy fatigue happen, because they can still see the patterns even though certain words are randomized. So if you notice a sudden, almost unexplainable decrease in reply rates, there's a good chance it's copy fatigue, and you want to sort of create entirely new copies. You can still have the same offer and meaning in the copies, but you just want to completely restructure it, like the length, the formatting, all that stuff. You want to change it. So that's really important to do. We typically do this about once a month. We just kind of switch it up to avoid copy fatigue. The next thing is avoiding spam words. Now, spam words are certain words that are associated with spam, and the email service providers, they obviously know this, right? So typically it's terms that have to do with money or urgency, so stuff such as like pay now or call me or that sort of thing. That's typically associated with spam, and the email service, they know this. But it could even be things such as like guarantee or offer, or like words that are typically associated with spam. So you can use a spam word checker. One of the ones we use is Mail Meteor. They have a spam word checker that you can use to find spam words and then change them and find other words. The next thing is reducing manual spam reports. So this is really underrated. This is super important, because when you look at the different inputs that these algorithms are looking at when they determine if a domain or an email account is actually sending spam, is what are the recipients saying? Are they deeming it to be spam? So this is super, super important, right? So if you're getting a lot of manual spam reports, that's really going to crash deliverability. Now, how do you avoid that? Well, the way you avoid that is by having proper targeting and list hygiene. So you want to make sure that the people you're reaching out to are qualified. You want to make sure it's relevant. You don't want to have a situation where you're reaching out to a bunch of people with an irrelevant offer, because they're going to report it as spam, rightfully so, because it's not relevant. So that's really important to reduce that. And then also like having custom variables, personalization can also help reduce manual spam reports. So that's really important. One of the biggest takeaways from this video should be this point. The next one is DNS settings. Most people also know about DNS settings. This is on the domain level. You gotta make sure that you are configuring your DMARC record, DKIM, SPF, etc. This is like basic stuff when you're setting up your domains to make sure that you have them optimized for cold outreach campaigns. There's tons of tutorials on how to do this out there. The next one is high quality email licenses. So where you're actually getting not just the domains, but the email licenses. And a lot of people use like some sketchy private infrastructure, like because they got some like cheap deal or something, or they're using a sketchy account reseller or something. This is difficult to get right, because you got to find a good partner. So luckily at ScaleSprint, we've been doing all the due diligence and testing, and we found one particular email account reseller that we're partnered with, and that sets up all this infrastructure for our clients. So if you can find a partner like that, it's going to be so beneficial, because you're not going to deal with all the headache of having some sort of reseller or private infrastructure provider that's not responding to you, or their infrastructure crashes and you don't know what to do. And you don't want to buy it directly from Google and Microsoft, because it's ridiculously expensive. It's like $8 an account a month. So if you want to set up 100 accounts, that's $800. It's crazy. We can do that for a fraction. So it's really important to get that step right. Obviously, you can use an agency like ours to just get access to our partner, but you can also do your own research and pretty much find somebody that's reliable. The last thing is doing proper deliverability checks. So a lot of people don't know how to actually correctly monitor email deliverability. They'll be looking at like health scores on their sequencer, which is not really accurate. You cannot look at your warm-up score either. This is not super accurate. You cannot look at open rates either. That's not super accurate. So really what you got to do is one, look at reply rate. If reply rate is below 1%, most likely you have deliverability issues. You also want to look at public blacklists. So are your domains listed on any public blacklist, which you can check on many different tools out there. You can just search for that. So you want to look at that, but you can also look at inbox placement tests, which is a feature that Instantly provides. So that is essentially a closed system where you have access to both the sending side, which is your own account, and the recipient side, because Instantly has set up dedicated accounts that you can send emails to, and then Instantly reports back if those emails landed in spam. You cannot do that in just a normal way because, like, let's say you're sending out cold emails. There's no way for you to know if you landed in spam because Google and Microsoft, they do not share that information with the sender, only the recipients. So if you can have access to both the sender and the recipient side of things, then you can do inbox placement tests and accurately assess whether or not you're landing in spam. So that's a really good way to test deliverability, which again, you can do on instantly.ai. So if you follow all these steps here and you make sure that obviously your offer is good and this product market fit and it's not like selling something that no one wants, you're going to have good deliverability. This is the ultimate checklist here. So if you want somebody to essentially set this up for you, run your cold email campaigns, ScaleSprint can help you with that. And I'll leave a link in the description if you want to have a chat about that. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a good day.